Now let's consider the basic principles of psychological first aid. As mentioned early in this training, psychological first aid is designed to reduce the initial distress caused by traumatic events. PFA acknowledges the seriousness of the experience of danger and the increased feelings of vulnerability that often follow. PFA fosters long and short-term adaptability, basic functioning, and coping skills. The ultimate goal of psychological first aid is to assist those impacted by traumatic events to readjust to life following those events. What assists with our emotional readjustment? When we accept the event and our losses, we are not talking about moral acceptance, but rather the ability to clearly look at the situation and its impact upon our life. We also have to be able to identify, label, and express our feelings about the event and our losses. This is why we just reviewed the various common stress reactions, so that we can begin to regain a sense of mastery and control over our lives. The principles of psychological first aid are designed to help survivors readjust as quickly as they can. To start the readjustment process, you can offer basic information about common stress reactions and ways of coping. The Psychological First Aid Help Card summarizes the basic principles of PFA on one side and lists healthy, effective coping strategies on the other side. This information can help both responders and survivors during and after a disaster or crisis event. The first principle of psychological first aid is to promote safety. The work of getting people from dangerous environments into safe environments is the #1 priority of any disaster or crisis response team. In addition, people who are injured or physically distressed must first be physically stabilized before any other impacts of a disaster or crisis can be addressed. That may mean getting them medical care, shelter from the elements, and basics like food and water. While the other principles of psychological first aid might be applied in any order that makes sense for the situation and the people involved, the first priority of promoting safety always takes precedence. The second principle of psychological first aid is to provide calm and comfort. Recalling the concept of psychosocial stress response, we know that following a traumatic event, most people will initially feel fear and distress. Most often, people in this situation just need someone to talk to about their experience, someone to care, someone to really listen, someone to lean on or cry with, someone to be present to them. The third principle of psychological first aid is to promote connectedness. Help the survivors find and reconnect with family and/or friends. Help them locate and reconnect with pets. Help them connect with the resources and services offered as part of the disaster response. And help them to connect with the community services and resources that will be available when the initial disaster response process is concluded and the long-term recovery process begins. The fourth principle of psychological first aid is to promote self-empowerment. An individual's resilience is enhanced when he or she is given the opportunity to make decisions about and work towards finding practical, realistic ways to restabilize and normalize their life. Psychological first aid aims to provide the self-care information needed to actively promote individual resiliency.